Good morning. It's a huge pleasure to be here, to be in Montenegro, to talk about the future. Is it going to be good, bad, or ugly? And the answer, of course, is all three of those. It's brilliant because we are discovering many things every day that will give us a longer, safer, healthier future. We're learning about climate change and climate dynamics and how to stop it, how to slow it down. We're learning about new cures for cancer. We're learning about new cures for Alzheimer's, dementia, and other things that afflict people around the world. And we're learning from the experience of countries like Montenegro how to overcome terrible conflicts, how to overcome a legacy of a lack of democracy to create an incredible new world. And this learning is being shared more rapidly with more people around the world than ever before. And that's why we can be very optimistic about the future. We know that young people are learning more rapidly and that they'll be assisted and augmented by incredible technological tools. And this makes me optimistic. We're in a new Renaissance, a period like the Renaissance of 500 years ago, where our perspectives will change in dramatic ways. Then they discovered that the world was not flat, it was round, that we weren't the center of the universe, we rotated around the sun and the sun around others, that the heart was not the soul, it was a pump. And we celebrate the Renaissance 500 years later because it changed perspective, and we see that if we go to the wonderful galleries in Florence and see a difference between a painting of 1450 and 1500. But we also know that the Renaissance ended in tears. It ended in Savonarola, who was the Trump of 1495, inventing the political pamphlet, using the same printing press that had spread ideas that had led to that incredible explosion of genius. And then what happened, of course, was civil war in Europe, the Inquisitions, and all tolerance in Europe being hounded out. Da Vinci, gay, vegan, would have been killed, and was later. The son of a slave. Now we have an incredible opportunity for breakthrough. But because this is the slowest day you'll know for the rest of your lives, because the speed of change is accelerating, people are being left behind more quickly. Some people in some places are doing incredibly well, and others feel not only left behind by change, but shocked by change. We saw this with the financial crisis, the first big element of systemic shock, what I call the butterfly defect of globalization, named after the physicist Lorentz's observation that when a butterfly flaps its wings over the Amazon, it can cause a tornado over Texas. That was about complex atmospheric systems. But now we're in a complex, hyper-connected world. We entangled. What happens elsewhere touches us intimately, and every decision we take, what to wear, what to eat, what to say, and where to say it, can ripple around the world. This entangled world leads to incredible things, but also to new vulnerabilities, new responsibilities that we each have with our freedoms that this world has brought. The financial crisis, starting in the Midwest of the US, creating unemployment for 135 million people around the world. And there are still people in the north of England, the Midwest of the US and elsewhere, who are poorer in real terms today than they were then. And of course, no bankers went to jail. It led to an anger, a resentment, which I believe lay behind the election of President Trump and Brexit in Britain. We would not have had either of those had it not been for the financial crisis. Systemic shock leading to vulnerability, insecurity, and a wish for protectionism, that globalization does not only spread goods, it spreads bads too. And then we had COVID-19, which exacerbated that fear. The fear of foreign, the fear of unknown, the fear of things coming across borders. And of course, that too exacerbated inequalities. Poor people died more frequently. they have a higher incidence of long COVID. This populism that's been generated leads to the ugly of globalization, the ugly of the future, the sense that the only way to protect ourselves is to build higher walls, protectionism and tariffs. Of course, this is wrong-headed, because there's no wall high enough that's going to keep out climate change. There's no wall high enough that's going to slow climate change anywhere. And there's no wall high enough, as the Chinese discovered when they tried to do it, that's going to keep out pandemics. But what high walls do is they keep out the trade, they keep out the investment, they keep out the skills, the technologies, the people, and most of all, the will to cooperate that we so desperately need. They lead to tensions which undermine cooperation. And today, the global system is weaker than at any time in the post-war period. You would not call the UN Security Council if you were in Gaza or if you were in Ukraine to help you. We can no longer look to the World Health Organization to stop the next pandemic. The US has pulled out of it. And of course, it's pulled out of the Paris Agreement as well. So globalization carries on. We are more entangled and will become more entangled every minute. But the global governance system, the United Nations, the Bretton Woods institutions, and other governance institutions are weaker. And that means we should expect more risk, more shock, more surprise. That's the only certainty. And so the question in this world is, what do we do? And what do leaders do? How do we build resilience in a world that we know will be more unstable? And the answer, I believe, is to be found here in Montenegro. It's to be found in the European Union. It's to be found in those countries around the world that believe in human rights, in democracy, and in the rule of law. Because that is the only way we can guarantee accountability. That is the only way we can guarantee stability and that we have inclusive societies. It's inclusive societies where we listen to the voices of those that don't always have voice, that will create the possibilities of pushing back the tide of populism. The tide of populism is a protest. It's a protest against those of the center right and the center left, who have not been able to bring the whole of society with them, who've made people feel insecure as we've become more entangled. I'm a huge believer in globalization. I do not believe we can turn our back on it, and globalization is not dead. These flows across national borders will continue, but will need to be more effectively managed within our countries and between our countries. Within our countries, we need to ensure that the benefits are more widely shared so that people can feel that the system is working for them, not against them. And between our countries, we need to see that we are able to cooperate to manage the risks which are inherent in these greater flows. The European Union has demonstrated how to do this by its extraordinary, revolutionary removal of many of the frontiers within the European Union, between the 27 countries, the Schengen Agreement and free movement of people, capital movement, defense, and justice being increasingly brought together. And that strengthens the whole of Europe, and of course, it creates a collective market which small countries particularly prosper by. Small countries like Montenegro, like all of the West Balkans, and like developing countries around the world, have the most to lose from a world where bullies bully everyone around. Rules-based international systems are designed to protect the weak. That's what they're for. And so small countries and emerging countries have the most to lose from a world in which we have autocrats in big countries deciding what to do. The rules-based system, and this was recognized in the Bretton Woods institutions, it was recognized in the United Nations, is about creating a level playing field, a fairer world, a more inclusive world. And we need that within our countries and between our countries. But we know we haven't got it. And so the question is, how do we then move forward? And I believe we need to have coalitions of the working. That those that want to make things move forward in a progressive way need to come together in new ways. And it's not only the governments, as happened after the Second World War. It's increasingly other actors who were not present in these great conferences at Bretton Woods and in the creation of the United Nations. It's businesses, it's cities, it's states, it's non-government organizations, it's other actors who now have a voice and have a capability. And it's our responsibility to work across these multiple layers and create coalitions that work. We've seen it work on multiple occasions. We saw it work in the closure of the ozone hole, or the closing of the ozone hole. We've seen it work in many, many other dimensions, in the fight to develop antiretrovirals on HIV/AIDS. We've seen it work in the elimination of smallpox in the world. We've seen it work in the creation of democracies across Europe. We've seen it work in multiple places. And we've seen the incredible ability to overcome poverty. And through Iceland and other countries' examples, we've seen the ability to address gender and other imbalances in our society. So we know it can be done. The question is, will we do it? And for me, the question is, are we in the First World War or are we in the Second World War? And you all, not least in this region, will be incredibly familiar with the experience of both world wars. The First World War, an absolutely ghastly war, with lots of promise at the end of it to create a new world order and a hope that was dashed by terrible leadership. Economic policies which are not that dissimilar to ours now, that are being generated in the US, tariffs and a tariff war, protectionism and nationalism given root, and populism following from that. And this cycle of poverty, populism, and protectionism created the Second World War and fascism. And then in the midst of that incredible, even worse war, an extraordinary thing happened. The leaders who had lived through the First World War, Roosevelt, Churchill, and others, said this cannot happen again. And citizens said, we will not allow our children to go out and be slaughtered again. And so 6 weeks after the end of the Second World War, Churchill, who was an extraordinary war hero, of course, was deposed in a national election in the greatest landslide that the Labour Party has ever known by Clem Attlee, who makes our current Prime Minister in Britain seem rather charismatic. This was an extraordinary protest by people about the need to change the game. And the welfare state was created with education and housing and full employment amongst the many promises, and an international system which has at its heart we the people and the commitment. And far from punishing those that had been the aggressor, the Marshall Plan and Bretton Woods institutions gave them money at huge scale. 3% of US GDP went to Germany and Japan. Unbelievable. And that's why we have Germany and Japan and Korea as we have them today. Leaders in the world and leaders for democracy. Because we saw that the aggressors needed help to transform after this. And that's why we have Europe today as we have it. So we need to learn from this history, and while we're in the midst of this terrible turmoil at the moment, we need to commit to creating a future which will be like that which was committed in the Second World War and not the first. I wish you all well with this conference. Thank you for the invitation, and good luck.